So I don't watch a lot of Flat Earthers videos these days, mainly due to family commitments, but also because they are just repeating the same claims that we have debunked years ago. However, I did watch this one because I noticed they were using a Coronado Hydrogen Alpha Solar Telescope. And the video title is Looking at the Second Sun with Chris Van Matry. As soon as I read that title, I had a suspicion of exactly what they were doing wrong. And as it turned out, I was correct. In this video, we're going to look at something called an internal reflection, which can occur in cameras and is quite prominent in this type of telescope. And apparently these flat earthers did not bother to read the telescope manual because it explains very clearly how you can eliminate them. Anyone that has followed this channel for a while knows that I have a Hydrogen Alpha Solar Telescope, and I've used it for various observations of the sun, all-day time lapses and also during the sunset. So let's take a look at what an internal reflection is. So to understand why cameras and telescopes can experience internal reflections, you just need to understand that glass is not 100% transparent. Here I am looking at a clear window, and if I take this torch and turn it on, you can see a very strong reflection of that light in the window. If a camera or a telescope has more than one layer of glass, you can also get that light reflecting back and forth between the layers, and that is what will appear as an internal reflection on the camera or telescope sensor. So this is looking at the front of the Coronado Solar Telescope, and here I have a single light source. If I shine that torch into the front of the telescope, you can see multiple reflections from the various filters and layers of glass inside the telescope. So because of the many filters in this type of telescope, it is quite prone to internal reflections, which can ruin your final image. In fact, it is such a problem that the manufacturer has included this tilt tuner. By rotating this small wheel, the front part of the telescope pivots around that hinge. And what that does is move the internal reflections away from the main frame and ideally out of the picture completely. And this clip shows what it looks like with a telescope. This is the main image of the sun, and this one is an internal reflection. You can see that it is a reflection because the prominences are the same on the reflection as they are on the main image of the sun. Now when we move that tilt tuner, the reflection can be moved completely out of the frame, like that. And that results in a much better picture. So what I was doing here was simply rotating that tuner in and out, and you can see the internal reflection moving in and out of the frame. I'll play a clip now showing how it occurs in real time. So here is the image from the telescope. This is the sun, and this is the internal reflection. The whole purpose of the tilt tuner on the telescope is to move that reflection out of the frame. Just moving it slightly, you can see that the internal reflection has moved and is halfway out of the frame. Doing it a little further, will move the internal reflection completely out of the picture. And that is the whole point of having that tilt tuner on the solar telescope. So if you go back to the Flat Earthers video, you can clearly see the tilt tuner on the front of the telescope here. But apparently he has no idea what it is used for. If you look at the instruction manual on the Meade website, it clearly tells you. On page 9 here, only adjust the tilt of this tuner until any internal reflections are positioned off the image of the sun and in the least bothersome position. When adjusting the tilt of the T-Max tuner, keep in mind the least amount of tilt used is best, as image quality will begin to suffer with excessive tilt. You only need to adjust your internal reflections to the point where they do not bother your view. So it is not just telescopes that are prone to internal reflections. This is footage from the P900 looking at a sunset in Perth, and you can see an internal reflection of the sun right here. As I play the video and move the camera around, you'll see that reflection moving around also.
Hey Woofy!
Hey, how you doing?
Good, smashing those flat earthers again?
Absolutely, every day. Have a good one. So I did post a comment on this video explaining that it was just an internal reflection that they were seeing. But apparently this channel censors heavily and my comment was not made public. What I find incredible is reading the comments from the flat earthers, who all seem very willing to just believe that they were looking at a second sun, instead of looking for a more reasonable and obvious explanation, which is right there in the instruction manual for the telescope. I really do pity these flat earthers sometimes. They are definitely not the sharpest people on the planet. So Emma is learning all the names of the stars. Do you like the stars, Emma?
Uh-huh.
Alright, let's go. The first one, Peacock,
Peacock,
Atria,
Atria,
Hadar,
Haida,
Mimosa,
Mimosa,
Alnair,
Ernie,
Jupiter,
Jupiter,
Mercury,
Mercury,
Markab,
Markup,
Shiat,
Head,
Capella,
Capella,
Castor,
Custom,
Pollux,
Pollux,
Elnath,
Onat,
Procyon,
Persian,
Regulus,
Regulus,
Alphard,
Airfog,
Algeba,
Alziba,
Polaris,
Polaris,
Acrux,
Lucas,
Markeb,
Markup,
Hadar,
Haida,
Menkent,
Merchant,
Larawag,
Lavagwag,
Shorla,
Sola,
Antares,
Antares,
Arcturus,
Arcturus,
Saturn,
Saturn,
Pluto,
Pluto,
Neptune,
Neptune,
Venus,
Venus,
Shedar,
Shida,
Alpheratz.
Alphabet,
Very good.
Minor,
What else have we got? I think that's enough for today. Aldebaran,
Aldebaran,
Betelgeuse,
Beatrice,
Bellatrix.
Beatrix,
Okay, that's enough stars. So what are the stars? What are the stars?
they're like suns but a long, long way.
They're like suns but a long way away. Very good.